Hey, it's me Lily. You're watching and listening to Tuesday Talk Time on Live, Dream, Inspire. Thank you so much for tuning in to watch and listen. I really appreciate your support. I mean, your time is precious and you chose to give a few minutes to listening to me. So I will try to give you something of value today as I do every week on Tuesdays. I think you will be able to identify with today's topic. For the past few weeks, I have been feeling really overwhelmed. Very often, I was overwhelmingly overwhelmed, if there is such a phrase. I mean, I see other people in the same situation as I am, staying at home, working at home, with 3 kids or more, and they're still sane, whereas I was going insane. The housework keeps piling up, the floor is a constant sea of Legos and trains and whatnot, and I'm often behind schedule with my blog and my videos. It's crazy, it's just crazy, and I thought, hey, maybe I'm not the only one. I'm almost certain that you get overwhelmed too from time to time. Some of us get overwhelmed once in a few days. Some of us get overwhelmed once a week, once a month, once in a few months, and the lucky ones get overwhelmed only once a year or hardly ever. No matter which group you belong to, today you will learn how to cope when things get too much to handle. Before that, let us recall the last few times that we got overwhelmed. Now, if I were to ask you, why did it happen? The first few words you would probably give me would be, oh Lily, there was just so many things for me to do in a very short period of time. Or you might say, out of a sudden, life threw me dozens of lemons and I couldn't make lemonade on time. Or I got sick, my children got sick, but I still got to hand in the deadline to my boss. All the things that you cannot control happening all at once, that's why you feel overwhelmed. But do you think it's preventable? Do you think it's possible at all for us to not be overwhelmed despite everything remaining the same? Is there an alternate way to facing these problems without the same amount of stress? Before we can answer that question, we have to get to the root cause of overwhelm. Why do we get overwhelmed? The number one reason we get overwhelmed is because we are too optimistic about how much we can get done. Have you experienced those days where you have a perfect list of what you want to do and you plan to finish it by the end of the day, but then by the time you reach midday, you realize that you can't get it done and then you get overwhelmed. For example, one weekend you decided you wanted to declutter your house, paint your house, go for a haircut, but by the time you reach Sunday morning, you realize that you're not even halfway through and you start to feel overwhelmed, and then you try to rush. When you rush, chaos happens, and then as if the world is trying to go against you, you ran out of paint, and then you cannot go to the paint store because your husband went out with a car. Such things happen. Things just come when you have a plan and you can't stay with your plan and you get overwhelmed. Or sometimes we get overwhelmed because we accept more than we can handle. We say yes to any request, and sometimes we are just afraid to miss out on opportunities if we say no. At other times, you get overwhelmed because the reality does not match with your expectation. Sometimes we expect normality, but then this happened and that happened, and then suddenly you cannot cope. All of a sudden, you have so much to handle in a seemingly out of nowhere situation. Overwhelmed! Oftentimes, we cannot control what happens around us or what is thrown at us, but we can control how we tackle the problem and how we face the issue. Now, before we attempt to turn things around, we first have to calm ourselves down, clear our mind in order to do work effectively. We have to know how to cope positively. So how would you do that? For me, I find that running helps a lot. I have to be honest with you, I hate running. I really hate running. I don't run every day, but when I feel overwhelmed, I will go for a run. And every single time it works. I will just feel better at the end of the run. I will come back home smiling. And that will never happen if I had stayed at home. You should try running, jogging, walking, whatever suits you. Just get moving, get out of the situation. You don't stay there and stick with overwhelm. Don't get stuck in the overwhelming situation. If possible, go for a long shower, a long bath. But if you're at work, go and wash your face or go and have a drink. Just get out of the office for a while. Or meditate. I love meditation. But just to set things clear here, I am not trying to spread Buddhism or any other religion. Meditation is not about connecting with any divine being or any higher being or Buddha. Meditation is not about connecting with anyone or anything. It's not even a connection with yourself. Meditation is about stillness, blank, rest, peace. It takes your mind off of things. It recharges your mind, recharges your feeling, recharges your mood. If you are new to meditation, please give it a try. It works. It is scientifically proven that it helps. So now that we know how to cope instantly with overwhelm, like go for a run, take a bath, meditate, it's time to dig deeper into the issue and find a way to turn things around and hopefully clear yourself of the overwhelm and prevent further overwhelming situations. Remember how I said we get overwhelmed because we are too optimistic of how much we can get done, or we get overwhelmed because our reality doesn't match with our expectations? Well, since we cannot change the reality, we can change our expectation. You see, for me, I noticed that on the days that I plan to do a lot of work and a lot of housework, I just feel overwhelmed by midday because I couldn't stick to my plan. Whereas on the days that I don't plan at all, I feel super relaxed. I just let the day lead me to wherever I have to go. But I'm not suggesting that you don't plan at all, because trust me, by the end of the week, you will feel super overwhelmed. So what's the solution? Number 1, plan with a buffer. Do you often squeeze in all your tasks back to back and then your schedule is a full day schedule? And do you often get yourself stuck in a situation whereby things just pop up and then you couldn't finish task number 1 on time, and then it drags to task number 2 and task number 3, and the day gets affected? To avoid this, plan a buffer. What do I mean? So you should intentionally overestimate the amount of time you need to complete a task. If you cannot do that, then just put a 30-minute blank space in between task 1 and task 2. This is to give you ample time to still work on your task if something pops up unplanned. Oh, and at the end of the day, you should schedule this thing called a rescue time. Maybe you can set it for half an hour. This is the time at the end of the day where you use to complete whatever task that was undone earlier on in the day, and you use this last 30 minutes of the day to do it before you go on to your relaxing evening, so that tomorrow you can start clean. Number 2, identify productivity sinkhole. Michael Hyatt, the co-author of the newly released book Living Forward, says in his podcast that we need to identify our productivity sinkhole, and I like this idea very much. What activity sucks all your energy but produces little or no result, or that doesn't produce any high value work, like responding to emails, using the internet, using your phone? If you stay at home, it's probably washing dishes, folding laundry. You have to identify your productivity sinkhole and reduce them. Even better if you can eliminate them or delegate them to somebody who is happy to do it for you, or who are better at doing those things. Give yourself more space and time to do more important things. Number 3, schedule your tasks. Make appointment with yourself. Why? This is so that you know that you have allocated time for everything that needs to be done, so that when you're doing task A, you're not bothered by the fact that, oh, when am I going to have time to do task B, task C, task D? when you have already scheduled everything, you know that there is time for everything. So you don't need to worry about that, and you can focus and you will not feel overwhelmed. Well, that's what I have to say about feeling overwhelmed, especially when it's work related. But what happens when we feel overwhelmed because of things that we can't control? For example, when our family has health issues, or like in my case, the children sometimes just make it very difficult for me. It's not that they want to make it difficult, they're children, right? But then sometimes I have my own limit of being tolerant. So how do we deal with things that overwhelm us emotionally? Well, like I have said, immediately after you feel overwhelmed, or when you feel overwhelmed, try to find a way to remove yourself from the situation. Go for a run, take a bath, or meditate, and then when you come back refreshed, you find a way to do something about the situation instead of just being on the receiving end of the situation. So you might think of ways to help the person if the person is having health issues, and you will feel better about yourself about the whole thing when you try to help out. And in the children's case, you try to do something that, yes, will make them feel better, will make yourself feel better, instead of playing the victim role. Try to be a person of doing something to turn things around. It's not easy dealing with overwhelm. It happens to everyone, but at the end of the day, it's within our control. It's not something that we can't control. So I hope after watching and listening to this episode, you are clearer on what to do when you feel overwhelmed, and hopefully I have provided some tips for you to prevent future overwhelming situations. So hope to see you again in the next video. In the meantime, do visit my website at lilysr.com, and please share the video if you like it. I would really appreciate it. Until the next episode, keep your dreams alive, do whatever it takes to make it happen, believe in yourself, because I know you have the potential. Bye!